Good morning. Can you hear?
Yes, ma'am. How you doing?
Oh, good. Sound check. Thank you.
I love that.
Susan,
Yes.
um, so are we going to follow a schedule?
Yes. So first up will be the Attorney General's office, followed by the Comptroller's office, and then DAS.
Okay. We said we're going to start with the Attorney General. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. So, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
We're going to start our working session for the government B. And just to let everybody know that Senator Kushner, she might be filling in on her. So at this time, we're going to, good morning, Attorney General.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Okay, so we're going to start, and I'll give you the floor. And if you want to just kind of go through any changes on your budget and any committee matters, if you want to ask any questions, you can do so. Just raise your hand.
Great. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for giving us the time. I've got a number of my team members here who are available to answer questions. I think others are still signing on. I've got Antoria Howard, who leads our budget and management operation here and is one of the most senior lawyers in my office in the state of Connecticut.
Commissary.
And then I have Healy, who heads our budget office, Sue Kavanaugh, who's our HR director, Kara Passero, who is chief of staff, and Eileen Meskel is a deputy attorney general. So the whole team is here. We wanted to make ourselves available to you. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just cover a few top line points, and then I have a couple of slides, and then take some questions. Does that work?
That's fine.
Great. So we've had a good year in the Office of the Attorney General. As I've said many times before to this subcommittee, the Attorney General's office, other than the Department of Revenue Services, brings in more money than any other office or state agency across state government. And in this past year, 22 to 23, we brought in $260 million to the general fund and in other recoveries. And so that includes opioid recoveries, money that we recover to the DCP Consumer Fund and other dollars. Most of it goes, about 200 million goes to general fund. And we've returned or protected over 366 million for Connecticut residents, which brings us to 677 million plus in this past year, which is pretty good for us. It isn't one of our biggest years, but it was a good year. And our cost to the general fund is around $35 million. So I'll do the math for you. We recover more than 18 times the amount that the state spends on our office. And that's consistent, within a band year over year over year. We roughly return somewhere around 18, 20 times our cost to the state. Let me just say before I get to this slide, Kara, why don't we just not go to that slide yet, if you don't mind. Let me just give you some highlights real quick. First, I want you to know that money from the opioid settlements is flowing into the state now. Now, as you know, that money is largely restricted to treatment, prevention, and addiction science, and was restricted by the legislature and is going through the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee. But that money is, 70 million so far and counting. I think if the money goes unspent, by the end of this year, it'll be close to 100 million. And I know the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee is working hard to approve grants, and members of appropriations are ex officio part of that committee, but know that that's building up. We have a number of big investigations going. Many of you know that we're investigating and suing the big social media and technology platforms. We have a couple of antitrust cases against Google. We've sued Meta, Instagram, Facebook. We're investigating TikTok. So that's the big thing in front of us right now. And we are leading the multi-state in many respects. In fact, my special counsel for media and technology will be arguing part of the motion to dismiss filed by Meta out in California. So Connecticut, again, leads the states. We're still recovering money from the opioid and addiction industry. Money's coming in from our Juul settlement. We have a lot of action in the privacy space, trying to recover money for consumers and to fight data breaches and always, protecting consumers, for example, when they're impacted by companies like Frontier and Altice, cable and internet companies. We fight every single day for ratepayers in front of PURA. And as you know, we had a big battle against United Illuminating, which sought the $136 million more from ratepayers. And we played a big role in pushing that back and avoiding such a huge increase. We've got a couple of rate adjustments coming for both major utilities. And so we'll be involved in that. And then we fight regularly against health insurance increases. Just so you know, top line statistics, we've processed over 5,200 consumer complaints in the past year. That's, automobile issues, home improvement problems for which I have criminal jurisdiction, travel, scams, 9,200 calls and thousands of emails from Connecticut residents and consumers, more than 1,200 elder justice hotline calls. And we moved. A big chunk of our office was for a long time, I think for more than 30 years, over at UConn Law School on Sherman Street. And we, as the state consolidates its office space, we moved them over to 165 Capitol. So we're all under one roof now. freeing up space for Yukon and ultimately saving resources for the state of Connecticut. And we could use more space, but we're making do. I think as an agency, more of us come in than maybe you're seeing across state government. I think people are averaging 3 days a week, and I'm encouraging everyone to be in as much as they can. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, with that top line set of thoughts, let me just turn to these slides quickly. I know Kara's bringing it up. And so if you look on the return on investment slide, so you see year over year that in terms of cash, if you look at well, first of all, if you look at the general fund appropriation, we're at 35 million now, and we're doing more in our office, and big litigation against the major polluters and chemical companies for discharging PFAS into our environment. I talked about social media, so we're doing a lot more. Generally, you see we've been able to return, around $200 million in cash to the general fund, and then you add other funds, which include those opioid-related monies and other recoveries. And so that's how I get up to about 260 million in this past year. And then it depends on the year, but then we also return money directly to consumers. We protect consumers from rate increases. We get child support and other collections. And so if you look at the total revenue generated this past year, sorry, I said it was 626 in this past year. I misstated that earlier. I said 677, but 626, the year before that, it was close to $1 billion. So it depends year by year as to what we're working on. But as you can see, we regularly return, 20 times or more of our cost to the state. Next slide, Kara. And so the big thing we're facing is there's a pretty draconian holdback by OPM. OPM has decided to hold back 2.65 million, which is not sustainable. And I will tell you, actually, if you go back, Kara, one slide, the 626 this year, I think that reflects the fact that we're light on people, and we have a significant number of people less than we had a year ago, and that is hamstringing us in our efforts. Next slide, Kara. And so because we're down people, we're unable to do as much as we did before for consumers and to recover as much money as we have in the past. I think it's really important to note the reason why OPM held back 2.6 million is because they say that we lapsed 4 million in PS. And while that may be numerically, arithmetically true, there are a number of reasons for that, mostly because we were hit really hard by the Great Retirement, and mostly because very, very, very senior people all retired at the same time. And to hire lawyers to replace them, good lawyers, people we really want in what is the state's largest law firm here in Connecticut, is not easy. And Toria leads that effort. We see a lot of candidates. We hire relatively few of them because we have very high standards in the Office of the Attorney General. Also, in good news for the state, while a lot of people, very senior people, retired, we're replacing them with relatively junior people. And so we're replacing some high salaries with lower salaries. And so the lapse of 4 million doesn't really tell the whole story. There are a lot of moving parts there. And so basically OPM's position, I think, is that, well, you lapsed 4 million, you must not need the money. And that's just not true. We're trying as hard as we can to hire people to replace the people that we've lost, but it's slow. And we can't continue to earn as much money as we earn for the state of Connecticut and frankly for the Appropriations Committee if we don't have the people to go out there and fight those fights and secure those recoveries. And so specifically, we are asking for that holdback to be restored, number one. Number two, we need additional people to do cannabis enforcement. I think many of you know that there's a lot of illegal cannabis product out there, particularly in smoke shops, service stations, gas stations. And, the legislature and the governor built a regulated market. The regulated market falls apart if we let people sell bootleg cannabis products. And so I'm out there trying to enforce the law. It is not something that local police are really focused on, to be candid. DCP doesn't really have the muscle to do this as well as they would like. And so we need people to do that work. I mentioned my PFAS litigation. That is a potentially huge recovery for the state going forward. And, we're going to spend a lot of money on remediating PFAS. So we need 2 additional assistant attorneys general to make that happen. And then, tribal gaming, sports wagering issues, it's always complicated, ever more complicated, given online gaming and sports gaming. So we've needed help there for a long time and ask you to consider getting us some help in that regard as well. So Kara and Eileen and Antoria, is there anything that I missed? Or Mr. Chairman, hope that's helpful.
It is very much. I didn't know if anybody in your team had anything to add.
I just want to say also, in addition to what the general just said, we do have defensive litigation sections representing abused and neglected children, representing the Department of Corrections, state police, and we need help in those areas. For example, our public safety section that has right now 19 lawyers, and they're handling over 20% of the federal inmate litigation docket. And so we're hoping to get additional help for those too, in addition to, bringing in all of the affirmative monies that the general just spoke about. We do value our defensive litigation sections who protect our children, neglected and abused children, by representing DCF, and they are one of our largest sections, and they also need additional help.
Actually, let me sorry, and
No.
the Attorney General fell down on his job here, and Toria makes an excellent point. We protect all of you. We protect the state of Connecticut. We protect the taxpayers of our state against huge exposures. The volume, so just so you know, the 2 biggest sections in my office by size are the public safety and child protection sections. So child protection represents DCF, and we routinely see huge cases filed against us. We had a really, really bad child abuse case in the past couple of years that was settled for $9 million, if I recall correctly. And that's going to continue to happen. I'm sorry to say, I think all of you know that. And then the legislature, the Judiciary Committee on the public safety side just approved a $25.2 million settlement of a case involving people who claim they were wrongfully incarcerated over 40 years ago. And that exposure was $60 million. And I was able to negotiate it down to 25.2. That was a good result if you can call a payout of 25.2 million a good result. But I think everyone understands you got to do what you got to do. And so these lawyers, again, these are the biggest sections in my office. They do work that I'll be honest, nobody else wants to do, right? It's not glamorous. It's not fun. It's not going out and taking on the opioid and addiction industry and suing Instagram. That's the fun stuff, even though it's really hard stuff. That's the affirmative work where you're on offense. But when we're on defense, it's really hard. And we need people to handle that work. The volume goes up every single year.
Well, thank you, Attorney General. I know you do a lot of work, and we really appreciated you working on trying to bring the sufficient amount of monies that are due back to the state, Connecticut. I know we both the years have worked very hard. Before I open up for my committees, any questions? I have some questions myself. I know that in the last budget, we had added some dollars for you to get some more help in your office for positions. And how is that helping you? And then also, if you can give us some idea about how many people have retired and what your count is at this particular point. How many positions do you have vacant?
Okay, thank you for that question. Let me say thank you to the committee and thank you to the legislature for appropriating money for us to fill new positions. Some positions have been filled. However, with the holdback, it's like one step forward, two steps back, you know?
Mhm.
So even though you appropriated money and gave us positions, they're effectively canceled out by the holdbacks. And so while I might say I hired a new privacy person, you know, because of the holdbacks, now I can't hire public safety people or child protection people or other people in cannabis enforcement or tribal gaming, sports wagering. So I would not say it's a wash, actually. I would say we're down, number one. Number two is, and I'll let Antoria speak to the counts. We're light at the moment, and we're definitely not. When I came in the office, we were light relative to where Attorney General Blumenthal was, and that had been true over time. We had made some headway in being more fully staffed, but because of retirements and because of the holdbacks, we're light at the moment in terms of staff. I want to be very clear, though, and we have this debate in the office. You know, I try not to talk about open positions because that doesn't really tell the story. What we really focus on in our office is how many actual people we have and how many positions have been approved and funded that we have yet to fill, right? Because it does no good to have, you know, open positions if you don't have the money, right? And if they haven't been approved by OPM and DAS. So I guess I will turn it to Antoria, and, you know, if you want to lead the way, Antoria, with Sue and let us answer the chairman's question.
Sure. Over the past couple of years, we've seen an excess of over 40 lawyers, in addition to support staff, which brings it to, I believe, a total of about 50.
And can I jump in there? 40 lawyers and plus support staff. But this is where it's important to note, it's not just 40 widgets, right? It's not just 40 units, right? Not all people are created equal, as you know. We're talking about 40, many of which were the most knowledgeable, expert lawyers in the state, not just in the Office of the Attorney General, in the state. We're talking about Steve Strom, Henry Salton, Joe Rubin, people that many of you have seen over the years, and people that, were the definitive voices for state agencies. Henry Salton left us because he was the top healthcare and education lawyer, and now he's at DPH because he's so expert in all of these issues. So it's not just 40, it's 40 and a number of those 40 counted for 2 or 3 people because they were so experienced.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
So how
And
many
you can't just go out,
vacancies
you
do
can't go out to market and say, by the way, you can't go out to market and say, all right, I lost Henry Salton, who was here for 30 years or whatever it is, and I'm going to replace him with another Henry Salton. Number one, another Henry Salton doesn't exist. And number two, the way that the civil service rules work and the way that it's set up in our system, it is not possible effectively to go out and hire an AAG at that level, at that salary, with that level of experience. Just not, it's impossible to do that. We would not be allowed to do that under the rules, even if we could find somebody to fill those roles.
So how many vacancies do you actually have? No.
Presently, we have 27. I believe we have 27. He and Sue, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Vacant full-time positions.
27?
Yes, 27. Yes.
Okay. And out of those 27, do you have can you provide us with a specific breakdown of where those 27 would fit in terms of what their job areas would be?
Sure. Sue, I'm not sure. How many are attorneys? I don't have that particular breakdown. I know right now we have about 8 attorney positions, I believe 7 or 8 attorney positions presently, which we're trying desperately to fill those positions.
And in cannabis, to
yeah,
do the
those
things
are
that you need to do, enforcement, how many more positions do you need? And are any of those part of the 27?
No, those are not part of the 27. The additional positions that the cannabis and PFAS that the general just spoke about, those are not included in the 27 positions. The 27 now are trying to refill positions and try to make up for positions that we never refilled. And that doesn't include we're losing additional 4 positions. The governor has taken 4 of our employees to be judges and a magistrate. We're so happy for them, but that leaves another big hole in our agency.
Yeah, that's another one I forgot about. The governor is rating some of our best lawyers and making them judges. And while we're very happy for them, for example, the state's defensive coordinator, the associate attorney general in charge of all defensive litigation in our state, is becoming a judge. Like I don't know how I'm going to replace her, honestly.
So, and once again, how many more positions do you need to in the cannabis regulation enforcement?
Sure. In cannabis, I believe, and Kara, you can jump in. I believe we've asked for 2 positions for cannabis. Yes.
You need
plus
2
a
more.
staff person, right? So 2 lawyers plus a staff person.
Okay. 2 lawyers plus a staff.
Yeah, and by the way, it's lawyers, but also we have 1 investigator who is able to go out and do this work. That means a person who shows up at these locations, smoke shops, often undercover, and does investigative work. And we need more bodies out there to physically go and investigate cases before we bring them.
Okay. And then also, when you showed us the chart and you said that the numbers of were down You know, it was 18 times versus, you look the prior year, it was almost 29.
Yeah.
A lot of that shortfall has come from just because you don't have the staffing. Is that correct to say?
Yeah, I believe that's absolutely correct. And, you know, I'll give you an example. We've got active cases against smoke shops, and cannabis suppliers. We've got active cases against, you know, ghost gun manufacturers. And while these cases, I mean, you hear about them because people care about these issues, but while they're not the $50 billion recoveries that we've seen in opioids, you know, they add up, right? And so you get a settlement here and a judgment there, and you know, 50 million, 50,000, 100,000, couple $1 million, including you know, recoveries for Medicaid fraud and that kind of work. You know, all of that adds up, and we don't have people to do that day-to-day blocking and tackling, then the money doesn't come in.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for those answers. Are there any other committee members that have been? Oh, okay. Representative Zarostowski.
Muted.
Representative, you're still muted. Representative Stanley.
There she goes.
Okay, right there.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Mr. Attorney General, good to see you here.
Nice to see you, Representative.
Have a question about the holdback request. I've been on the Appropriations Committee for quite a while, so we you know, hear a lot of complaints about holdbacks from time to time. And you're looking for a reversal of a 2.6 million roughly holdback out of a list of 80 million in holdbacks over 28 agencies.
Yep.
These reflect, I guess, historic staffing levels. I'm just trying to square this up with your request to get the additional 2.6 back versus your 27 vacant positions. If the holdbacks reflect historic staffing levels, I'm trying to understand what the difference is here and why the request is necessary. You know, even after you fill the 27 vacant positions.
Well, let me just clarify, and Toria, correct me if I'm wrong, the 27 positions are what is vacant and available, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Not
but-
necessarily what is funded.
Right.
Okay. And so that's why I said when we started this, we always get confused about this. There's a difference between the vacancies and the positions we should be able to fill and what we can afford. Because of the holdbacks, we are unable to get back to where we were. And because of the holdbacks, we are unable to fill the new positions that the legislature has mandated and requested that we take on because the legislature wants us to do even more work, which we want to do, but we can't do it without additional bodies. And so,
how many of the 27 vacant positions are actually funded?
Can I speak to this?
go ahead.
So we have a budget of $35 million. And let's say we have 319 positions in our head count. But that 30, and this has been since I've been here 10 years, that 35, whatever our budget number is never enough to cover the 319 positions. We may be able to fill 298. And there's always a list of vacancies that we just don't have the money to fill. And that's what's going on now. So currently, I think somebody asked how many of the vacancies are attorneys. I believe we have 7 that are attorneys. And with the holdback, that set us back even more. So now we're talking not 20 positions we can't fill. Maybe we're talking 25.
But you did hire 55. You did hire 55 people this year.
Right. And that was due to the retirements. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just trying to, we have all these agencies coming in looking for dollars. Okay. I just want to try to understand why the AG's office should be treated differently from the other agencies who have been asked to sacrifice this.
Let me answer that question with all due respect. Two things. Number one is because we bring in more money than everybody else. And there's a direct correlation to the number of people to the amount of money we bring in. And so I don't know of other than DRS, I don't know of another state agency that even comes close to $200 million cash every single year. And that number can go up if we have bodies and people, again, not to necessarily go secure the $50 billion recoveries, but the 100,000, 500,000 or more recoveries that make a huge difference to the state. That's number one. Number two, and this is all due respect again to state agencies. The Office of the Attorney General is not a state agency. The Office of the Attorney General is an independent constitutional office. And the legislature, in your wisdom, working with the governor, have decided to appropriate a certain amount of money to the Attorney General's office and to the other constitutional offices. And I believe that should not be subject to a holdback, because we are independent and we should not be subject, because of the separation of powers, to a holdback by the executive branch. We're not a line executive branch agency. And you know, you can imagine a situation, sorry, where you have a governor and a constitutional officer of different parties, and you would not want a situation where politics comes into play and somebody can hold back or impair somebody's budget, even though the legislature has appropriated that money over political considerations, which is why I think that the Office of the Attorney General and the constitutional offices are different and should be independent for budgetary purposes.
General, but the office OPM, state controller, state treasurer, secretary of the state, all have holdbacks on this list.
I agree that they do, but I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think it's appropriate to hold back from them either.
And so anyway, I'm not sure we're going to solve this today, but I appreciate your answers. And again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Representative. Representative Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, I'm listening to, you know, the wealth and breadth of talent that retired, which, you know, certainly is concerning. I guess what I don't understand or would like to know is certainly they had people who were working under them.
Yes.
And they should have been sort of bringing them along in knowing, in fact, that, you know, retirement was coming and all of that, you know, that's typically how we do things. So I'm just a little confused as to why these people are not ready to take over the reins, shall we say.
That's a fair question. I think in some places there were people and are people that are ready to step up and take over. In all cases, we have asked people to take on that responsibility, but two things are true. Number one is sometimes that second in command becomes a judge. Sometimes that second in command leaves and goes to private sector, and we are left with a big hole. That's number one. Number two is there's just no replacing a Joe Rubin or a Henry Salton, because there's just no replacing somebody with 40 years of experience and expertise. And I'm not a replacement for either one of them, to be candid, even though, you know, I'm the senior most lawyer in my office, but I can't do what they did, and I don't know that anybody else can. And so because of that, there isn't a perfect replacement. Is there somebody who can step in and handle some of the load and do a good job? Yes, But are they all that that person brings to the table? No.
Well, I think in any organization, when someone, with that many years of experience, that amount of knowledge leaves, there's always a hole. But certainly there's people who have, sort of been groomed to at least come up and, begin to step in.
Yes,
And
but
you are never going to be able to go out there and hire, an exact replacement. It just doesn't, it's just not possible.
well, two things. One is they don't all leave at the same time. So that's something that we're facing that isn't true in other organizations. They don't all retire in the same year. That did happen, okay, because of the Great Retirement, number one. And number two is in the private sector, Representative, if you had a senior lawyer and you lost them, you might go out and hire another senior lawyer to replace them with the same experience at the same compensation level. Even if you have somebody who's been groomed, if you really wanted to replace somebody with that level of experience and expertise, you can go to the market and find them. We can't do that here. It's just not allowed. I would never be allowed to do that, to go find a law firm partner that has the same level of expertise as a Henry Salton and pay them and bring them in as an assistant attorney general for that just is impossible in our system.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me add, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I also neglected to note that, and I think all the legislators here know what I'm talking about. Hardly a day goes by where someone, some agency that you work with or some nonprofit that is active in your community is waiting for a contract to be approved. And I think it's a matter of sport, frankly, in state government to blame the Attorney General's office and say the contract is sitting with the AG. Most of the time, that's not true. I'll be honest, but I know that it happens. But contracting is incredibly important. You're putting out a lot of grants, a lot of ARPA money that's still going on, and we need to review those contracts. And so part of what we're placing and asking for are bodies to review those contracts so we can get them out the door.
Okay. Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there any other members of the committee that have any questions? Seeing none. Attorney General, thank you.
Thank you.
I know that we are always, as a legislature, we're always committed to doing whatever we need to do to provide the resources so that we can bring the money back in so that we can disperse it properly throughout the state. So if you can please provide this committee with the breakdown of your personal services, your how many of your staffing that of the 27 that and what their positions will be. Okay.
I know that Representative Nuccio asked us very specific questions, and that a lot of that information was provided in a written response to Representative Nuccio. And so we'd be happy to share that as well.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the team from the Comptroller's office is here. I'm ready.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Okay. Who is going to do?
Yeah, the deputy
Okay.
Comptroller Tara Downs is going to lead the team today.
All right. Hi. Can you introduce your team?
Yes. Good morning. My name is Tara Downs. I'm the Deputy Comptroller. Comptroller Scanlon and I are kind of dividing and conquering today because he's testifying before another committee right now. And I have with us some of our division directors and our assistant division directors. Also have Anthony Naples here, who's our policy and legislative director. Michael Delaney, who is our budget and financial analysis division director. Carolyn Mercier is Assistant Division Director who oversees our agency budget. Josh Wojcik from Healthcare and Benefits Division. And who am I missing? I'm looking around the squares. I think we have others here as well. Beth Masha from Central Accounts Payable and John Harrington from our retirement services, Glenn Churchill, who oversees Core CT. And I believe we have someone from statewide payroll as well.
Okay, well, thank you. I know that there were some questions that were provided to you. I didn't know if we wanted to kind of go over some of those, give some of the answers, and give our committee opportunity to respond.
Absolutely, I'm happy to walk through them fairly quickly. I know that you asked about the latest OPEB report, which we submitted. Josh Wojcik can answer any questions I believe that come up related to that. There were some questions about funding for UConn Health, some changes in the funding on the fringe benefits. I know for many years we talked about providing relief to UConn and higher ed institutions regarding the fringe benefit costs because of the unfunded liability that has built up over the years. And so there was a decision made where those costs were going to be shifted to the general fund away from the higher ed institutions. And in exchange, they would agree to start funding some of the other fringe benefit costs, group life, and some other categories. We spell it out in the testimony. So there are some questions about that. Same thing, someone was asking about changes. We had a $30 million surplus with the active state employees health account and higher than expected costs in the state retiree account. So there were some questions related to that, and we gave descriptions as to the cause for that, makeup of the enrolled population, change, the performance of the state plan, and fringe benefit policy changes. Happy to answer, again, any questions that anybody has about any of these items.
Okay. So are there any committee members that have any questions? No? Oh, okay. Representative Harrison?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Do you have information about how many employees are working, by remotely? And can you provide it to us, a breakdown, maybe by quarter, by agency?
Yes, happy to provide you the exact numbers on that. I can tell you off the top of my head that the vast majority, it varies by division, depending upon what sort of interaction a division has with, public facing. So our customer service center, I think they're in the most. Obviously, that's the team that is interacting with state employees and state retirees about their benefits. So I'd say they're in, John Harrington, correct me if I'm wrong, at least 50% of the time, and then remote 50% of the time. Again, the executive office is in at least 4 days per week. And I think a lot of divisions, most of our employees come in at least 2 days per week, except for the, public facing that are dealing with, customer care. But we're happy to provide the exact counts for you.
Thank you. I'd appreciate it. So, by agency and by whatever information you have that you can break it down for us, that'd be wonderful.
We can do that.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee members? So just to kind of do, I'm sorry, Representative Harrison, you had your hand?
Sorry, I just want to make sure that I was clear that it was, across agencies, so statewide, not just within your agency.
Statewide. I'm sorry. We actually do, do we have somebody here from statewide payroll? I know OLR probably tracks that statewide, but we may have that. We should have that through statewide payroll. But thank you for that clarification. I thought you meant our agency. I'll see if we can get that through a payroll.
Thank you. Sure would appreciate it.
Okay.
So can you provide us with a breakdown of all your vacancies?
Absolutely.
And with those positions exactly are, so the committee can look at that. And when you say the 50% of the people are on remote, is that 50% of overall collaboration of individuals, or are they a set group of people that are part of that 50%?
No, I'm referring to a set group of people, the people who are on our customer care, customer facing roles. They are in 50, their work week is 50% in, 50% remote. Correct me if I'm wrong, John Harrington.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But as for, you wanted a breakdown of our positions, Representative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And with
so right now we have
of your vacancies and what their titles are.
Absolutely. So we have 284 authorized positions. Of those, 250 are filled right now. We have 20 funded vacancies, meaning they're in some sort of stage of recruitment. We have 14 unfunded vacancies. And of those 14 unfunded vacancies, you would see from our testimony that we are asking for 7 of those 14 unfunded vacancies to be restored. The vast majority of those are related to Core CT, which supports every single financial transaction basically that goes through the state. And right now, Core CT is going through a major upgrade and expansion, the largest since it was implemented. And we're also incorporating the teacher's retirement system into Core CT. So there's going to be significantly more transactions flowing through our system. And so that's the cause for the Core CT request. We're also asking for 1 position in Central Accounts Payable. They perform post audits on certain transactions, and they're asking for 1 position to be able to conduct pre-audit. So before transactions are made, an attempt to try and identify fraud and improper transactions before they happen as opposed to after they happen. And then in statewide active and pension payroll, we were asking for 2 entry-level positions for the customer care team that specifically deals with deceased pensioners. Believe it or not, we actually lose 150 to 200 pensioners every single month. And when that happens, we want to make sure that there is extra care for those families when they reach out to us. And they are kind of unique compared to the other calls that we get because they have needs that cross several divisions within our agency: health benefits, their pension, and group life insurance. So we're hoping to have, we've done a process analysis, and we were hoping to be able to add those 2 positions to assist those 150 to 200 families that we get every month. Happy to answer any questions you have about that.
Thank you. Representative Harrison, you have your hand up?
I do. Thank you. I do have another question. When we, originally spoke with, your agency department, one of the things I asked about was the funding of SERS and TERS and OPEB, which we got that information. OPEB is funded 12%. Pretty concerning, very concerning.
We agree.
What's being done, or what plan is being put in place, or what thoughts do you have about dealing with that issue? I know we're making ground in, our SERS and TERS, but that other one is also a big unknown.
Thank you, Representative Harrison. And we sincerely agree, and we share your concerns, and we are actually working on some policy recommendations. I'm going to pull a lifeline here with Josh Wojcik, who's the director of our healthcare policy and benefits division. Josh, I don't know if you want to take this one.
Happy to jump in on it. I want to highlight, as Tara said, we are reviewing options to potentially present on efforts around that. But I think the key pieces here on the OPEB liability is the state has always funded it as a pay-as-you-go. So we pay for retiree health care within our budget every single year. And the growth of or our ability to continue to do that is dependent on the growth within retiree healthcare costs. So, how much is our Medicare Advantage plan increasing year over year? How much are our retirees' healthcare increasing year over year? And how much larger is that population getting in any given year? If you look at the last, since in 2017, when we moved over to Medicare Advantage and we signed the last CBAC agreement, the growth in the retiree healthcare accounts has been very mild. It's been growing much slower than the budget overall. So what is really happening there is it's allowing for more funds to be available for other purposes. And as long as we can continue to manage those costs on a move forward basis, there is minimal risk relative to our level of funding of OPEB. At the same time, in the background, we have been since some employees started contributing in 2009 to our OPEB fund. And so our OPEB fund has now close to $3 billion in it. That money is not touched at all at this point, right? And so at some point in the future, we will be able to start to utilize some of that funding to contribute to these ongoing retiree healthcare costs that we pay as a pay-as-you-go on a pay-as-you-go basis. When we begin to do that, that could potentially further reduce the state's ongoing costs relative to retiree healthcare. But there is, I do want to highlight that there is not a fiscal cliff that is on the horizon relative to retiree healthcare costs, because we pay them right now every single year. And so it really is just the affordability is a function of how quickly retiree healthcare costs grow and how quickly our retiree population grows. Those are really the two biggest factors that will contribute to how much that line item will grow over the next several years.
How many people do you have on staff that are actually monitoring that and working on them? When you talked about the health.
So within my division, which oversees both retiree health and active health and group life, we have about 35 employees. Within our retiree health unit, who works specifically on retiree health, I'm going to try to count them up in my head really quick. I think we have 7 or 8 folks that work directly in that unit, specifically on retiree health. And then one other thing, we do have a unit that works on OPEB, manages our OPEB contributions or state employee OPEB contributions. And there are 2 individuals that work directly in that unit as well.
Do you have any vacancies?
I don't in my unit.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Representative Harrison.
So,
Yes, some
sorry,
more questions.
I do have one more. So you've said that we've collected about $3 billion as contributions to this OPEB, and how are we handling them? How are they invested? What kind of return are we getting on them so that we you know, they're not staying stagnant, but certainly working, you know, for us.
Yeah, so those funds are invested the same way as the pension funds are. So they're invested by the treasurer's office with you know, some similar investment strategy to the pension funds. So when we look at and we develop our projections, right? That sort of OPEB report, Rep. Harris, that you were referencing, we apply to that balance the projected rate of return that we use in the CSRS and TERS account, which is 6.9%. So that's the assumed rate of return for those dollars. And then for the portion of earned benefits that you know that we do not have funding for, right? The remaining balance of the OPEB liability that basically gets a municipal bond rate in terms of the projected rate of return, because it's assumed that we're going to we're going to continue to pay as you go, and so we'll have limited returns on the pay as you go funds, which makes sense.
Okay, thank you. I still think, you know, it's concerning. I'm glad that we're doing a pay-as-you-go, but certainly having things funded is, you know, a better thing for the state of Connecticut. And I'd be happy to hope that we can, you know, move in that direction and, you know, take care of that. I think it's, you know, a more secure way.
Yeah. And just to say one last thing on it, Rep. Harris, is that because we do a pay-as-you-go, right, we have that retiree health line item. Raylan, I don't have it in front of me what it is, but it's usually around $600 million a year, right? And if we were fully funded in OPEB, we wouldn't have a retiree health line item, right? So I think that's your point, right? We would the retiree health line item would be $0 if we were fully funded relative to OPEB. And so that's really the cost to the state for not funding, you know, those retiree health benefits as they were earned.
Yep, correct. Absolutely. Thank you.
Is that it, Representative Harrison? And I apologize if I cut you off in your line of questions.
No problem, Representative Baker. We always want to get to all the questions that we need to, so thank you.
Representative Zarastowski, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I apologize if I may have missed it. I had a question about telework, and I think that you may have answered a question about it before. I just wanted to find out how many employees statewide are enrolled in doing telework for the state.
Yes, we don't have that immediately, but I think that our payroll division can probably get that for you, and we're happy to provide that to the committee, Representative.
Okay, and actually, can we get a breakdown by agency?
Yep, we can do that. I believe we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be extremely helpful. So, okay, and I think I have one more question here. Let me flip through my papers. The Fallen Officer Fund. Can you give us an update on that?
Absolutely. Actually, that's where Comptroller Scanlon is right now before the Public Safety Committee testifying on that. As you know, that was $500,000 was provided last year, and we're hoping that that will be continued going forward. We had, you know, one officer's family that benefited from the fund last year, unfortunately, but I don't know if there's any follow-up questions or anything specific you have for us about that. Happy to answer.
No, just kind of looking at it, trying to find out an update, and I think we'll check the testimony.
Yep. I believe it's $100,000. Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's $100,000 paid out
Okay.
when we lose an officer.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Harrison, you had your hand up. Another question?
No, I'm very happy to say that Representative Zarastowski asked it for me, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any committee members that have any more questions? Okay, well, thank you. If you can please provide those answers to the questions to us as quickly as possible. We appreciate you, each and every one of you coming out here, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Representative. Take care.
Chairman, the DAS team is here and ready to go.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Representative Baker and Representative Harrison, Representative Zaustowski.
Good morning, Commissioner. You have the floor. I know we've provided some questions. If you want to just kind of go down our list and allow committees to maybe ask some additional questions to give us some clarity. So.
Certainly.
And Madam Commissioner, screen sharing is enabled, if that would be helpful.
Thank you so much for that. So Carrie Scase from our budget team will be sharing various documents that we forwarded to the committee for your review during this meeting. So Carrie, I do want to confirm that you're able to share appropriately.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you so much. So good morning, and thank you again for the opportunity to present before you this morning and to answer any questions that you have. We have submitted answers to you in response to our initial meeting before the full Appropriations Committee. And we've also forwarded additional questions that Representative Nuccio had as well. So we hope that that information is helpful as you continue to review the documents that we've sent and various fiscal background and history regarding our agency budget. And I am joined by a large fraction of my team regarding our property team, IT, HR, procurement, and others. So happy to have them engaged in various questions as we move forward this morning. So in terms of the questions that the Appropriations Committee had asked during our February 16th meeting, Senator Austin had asked for a number of people that are associated with other funds. And so we've responded that we have 47.7 FTEs associated with funds. We've outlined those various SIDs, everything from 12001, 12003, 12004, 12006, and 12007. 5 FTEs remain vacant within that 47.7. And we've provided an attachment that demonstrates the various FTEs for your review, and happy to review that in detail at your convenience. Any questions on that?
Any questions to the committee members? No? Okay.
Okay. And the next question was from Representative Walker regarding IT optimization. I know we did speak at length during the committee, and we've had the pleasure to speak with other members, whether it's one-on-one or through other presentations, about the benefits that IT optimization has had on the executive branch since this model was introduced to the state several years ago. I'm happy to run through the responses that we've provided and I want to also acknowledge Mark Raymond, who is the state's Chief Information Officer, and he can also speak in great detail about IT optimization, the successes that we've seen, both from an enterprise level across the executive branch, and also the level of agency engagement. Their satisfaction with IT optimization, as well as employee engagement, which I think is significant when we look at the results that our employees are filing with us in terms of their satisfaction as employees working under this model. Really something that we're very proud of moving forward. But the cost efficiencies, the risk mitigation for the state when it comes to cybersecurity, streamlining our IT policies across the executive branch, and protecting against cyber threats and other risks are something that have been extremely beneficial to the executive branch. So we're really excited about the opportunity to formalize the ongoing structure that has been in place for the 6 federally funded agencies that we're looking at in the budget, and then the opportunity to work on a broader level with DOT and DMV under this model. I do want to reinforce that the IT optimization model, it allows for and in no way takes away IT staff or takes IT operations out of an agency. The IT operation optimization model only adds bandwidth and supports the IT requirements of each agency. So each agency retains their independence when it comes to their mission and their programs, but we add additional value to those agencies and additional benefits to those agencies in so many ways. So I do want to reinforce that we are not taking employees out of an agency, and we are not taking operations out of an agency. And I'm happy to ask Mark to provide a little bit more context around the day-to-day operations of IT. Mark?
Thank you, Commissioner Gilman. You did a fabulous job of telling, the high-level story. The realities of technology is that, all of our agencies are somewhat interrelated today, and that technology is changing more quickly than many agencies can keep up. So by working together, we have a better opportunity to do really 3 simple things. One is to improve our, make sure that our agencies are happy, because there's no reason for technology to be in business if it's not serving the agencies. 2, make sure that our employees are happy and that they have a career path, they're able to grow and build skills and apply them in a meaningful way. 3, make sure that the public is happy, that we're providing better solutions for the public at large, and that we're doing all of those 3 things in a way that helps to contain the rising costs of technology. So if you can imagine each agency doing entirely all of their own technology work, that we're not then leveraging the scale of the state, and we're making it harder for members of the public, our businesses, our municipalities to work as each different agency would choose. But by working together, we can bring them a greater security so that we are protecting the data that's in the care of the state, better solutions, but all of that is in respect for, and in conjunction with the agency's individual missions. And so we have recently rolled out some security products for all agencies that have, in the news, you see lots of ransomware attacks and things that are happening to the public that we have been able to prevent within the state because we've rolled out these statewide tools. And so, unlike many other areas of our business, technology is dynamic, it's changing all the time, and this change allows us to bring better skills to all of our agencies in ways that would be impossible without it. Would love to.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just, if you do have any questions, I know that.
Okay. Okay, so, I appreciate all that you've done to try to bring some efficiency and the support to all the agencies through this reorganization. So, do we have any questions from any of the committee members? No? Okay. All right.
So we'll continue with the.
Oh, Reverend Harrison? I'm sorry, Representative Harrison. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry,
Okay.
I thought you meant, do
That's
you have any
okay.
questions, any further questions on the IT consolidation?
Go
Ken,
ahead.
I know Senator Austin and myself both asked about kind of a better explanation of why you are overseeing Troop H. So can you please fill us in on that?
Certainly, absolutely. I'm happy to answer that question. So I think if, within the questions that we forwarded back to the committee, we've provided just verify the number here. In question 4, we've provided the legislative citations around the authority on Troop H, but I am going to ask Doug Moore to provide some additional context. This was based on some legislative statutes governing these properties. So Doug, if you could introduce yourself and provide some context around Troop H, appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Representative Doug Moore from DAS. I'm the facilities administrator there. Basically, there is a law that's been on the books. It's section 4B-12, which clearly states the Commissioner of Administrative Services shall have supervision, care, and control of state police buildings located in the city of Hartford. I'm not sure how long that law has been on the books, but it was discovered by OPM last May, and literally May 1st of last year, when the citation was read, the property, or Troop H, was given to DAS to manage.
Representative.
Yeah, no, okay. It just, I wonder if it's just a sort of long-standing, outdated, statute, and I guess we can reach out to legislative management or something to get an explanation on that, but you don't know how long it's been on the books.
I could probably find out for you. It's probably at the bottom of the citation of the statute. I just don't have it right in front of me.
That would probably
But I
be
believe it
helpful.
is a long-standing statute. And I believe there is some history that judicial, which there's 3 buildings on this property, on this parcel of land. The first building is the largest and it faces Washington Street, is still operated by judicial. Behind it is Troop H. And then there's a maintenance garage that has the heating system that supports all 3 buildings. And judicial is, I think, looking to vacate that property, which was brought to the attention of OPM, which then made them realize the statute and why DAS is moving in, because judicial did provide, from a facilities perspective, a lot of support to the 3 buildings that are located there.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation.
And Representative, if I could, I just want to thank Doug and his team. I think the relationship that we've had and the partnership that we've had with DESPI, as we've transferred management of that property over to DAS, has been a very strong one. And so really want to, again, thank Doug and his team. I think that again, we have a very robust relationship with the DESPI facilities team. And I think there's been a strong level of satisfaction around DAS support for that property.
But to be clear, this is the only troop, though, that you have any kind of oversight of.
Doug, do you want to take that?
Sure. That's incorrect. We actually do have MOUs with DESPI, and we manage their headquarters building down in Middletown at 111 Country Club Road. And I believe we have 2 police barracks that we provide management services to DESPI for. I believe the one, I can't at the top of my mind think of them, but there's several. We have a long-standing relationship with DESPI where we provide property management services to them. The difference with Troop H, is care and custody based on that statute has been transferred to DAS. Whereas we provide a service to other police barracks and their headquarters with property management services.
Thank you.
Representative, it appears just from communications with my team that that statute's been on the books since 2011. But we can certainly provide additional context and information to you after the hearing, after this meeting as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, Representative Harrison, for now?
For now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, I know we were going down the list of different questions, and I know we left off at when we talk about the IT. Were you finished in terms of with that question?
So I know there were some additional supplemental questions on IT optimization. We did bring an org chart for your review, not only with respect to IT optimization, but for our entire agency. So you will see that in your review. I do want to thank our HR team. We've got a new HR system in place with our org charts, and I think you'll find it very helpful. It does identify the funding source for each position, and certainly as well, of course, the division and the reporting structure. So I think you will find that very helpful for your review. And then you had also asked as a committee for us to bring what positions we would be transferring to DAS and how they're classified in the agencies. So we have included that as well. For IT optimization, there's no change in redesign of job functions. If an employee is moving over from one agency to DAS, they stay at that same level. They're not demoted in any way or changed in classification. In fact, through the IT optimization model, we're really proud of the training and development that's offered within this team. And I think that speaks to the satisfaction levels that we have among our employees. We've also had a wide range of promotional opportunities for those employees. And that fulfillment, I think, again, carries forward in the survey results. But we've worked very closely with the P4 union and others to ensure that that career job growth trajectory is in place. And again, the training and development. So we feel very comfortable about the growth potential for our IT team. And we're working really hard to attract the most talented workforce for our state IT team possible. I think that actually wraps the specific questions that you as a committee may have had around IT optimization. And I think the next question was number 3, Representative Baker. You had a question around the savings with IT optimization. So we can go through that if there's no questions on the personnel aspect.
Thank you.
So in terms of savings, we've provided a number of use cases where IT optimization can be beneficial. But Mark, I'm going to ask you actually to speak to some of the savings opportunities that we've seen or efficiencies as we've moved forward on that optimization model. Oops.
Getting to the unmute. I knew where I needed to be. It just took a moment to get there. We've seen some tremendous savings in working together and really bringing technology on scale to the state. And so some examples are we've been working and agencies have been leading with bringing Salesforce-based solutions to bear. Not all agencies, but some, and we have negotiated an enterprise deal which reduces the overall cost, and that is a $1.4 million savings annually over agencies buying what they intended to buy anyway, along with similar product. Similarly, our Microsoft 365 agreement, which allows us to work remotely, use Teams and document sharing that makes our lives more predictable and secure. brings multi-factor authentication so people can't be breaking into our state email. We've saved over $5 million on the life of that engagement by working together, bringing greater capability and more cost efficiency. The security efforts I'm really proud about, which is in a really short period of time, we deployed new technology seamlessly to all of our agencies with their cooperation and acceptance, and we've seen amazing results in protecting our systems, our computers, our storage. But at the same time, because we've done it at enterprise scale, we've saved $700,000 annually over doing that independently. And frankly, this is one area where if we have to, even if an agency did not have the money to do this, we have to invest in the security, given the threats that we have in the environment around us. And then finally, because of how we are looking at federal reimbursements, we are very careful of making sure that we are getting as much as possible that's allowable as federal reimbursements. We believe we've identified that we can get for some of the work that's been attributed out to our agencies or technology expense on their behalf, about another $1.2 million of federal reimbursement to more accurately account for how technology is being spent and utilized on agencies' behalf. So this is just a small, we did pick out the sort of larger dollar numbers, but there are many other instances where by working together, we're able to use our taxpayer dollars more efficiently. Would there be any questions on any of those examples?
Yes, I do. So in your federal reimbursement, do you have a breakdown on what exactly areas that they will reimburse you in?
Yeah, so we do and can share that. The way that central costs, whether it's OPM, DAS, or technology, are attributed is that they're captured centrally and are allocated out as part of the overhead rate that then allows for recovery. But we can get you the details on what areas those are.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other committee members had questions? No? Okay, Commissioner.
Okay. So we've talked about troop age, and that was the next question within the narrative. So I'll move to question 5, which was relative to the transfer funding from DAS to DOC for a safety officer position at DOC. So the governor's proposed budget moves $95,000 from DOC's workers' compensation claims line in DAS and reallocates those funds to DOC's PS line to establish a new position in DOC to promote employee health and safety, identify hazards, and improve the overall safety culture for employees. And we're very supportive of this model and encourage other agencies where they have not been able to deploy safety officers to do so. We find it really helps, again, with employee safety and wellness, and then also as a cost containment effort around workers' comp claims. It is assumed that this position will ultimately pay for itself by reducing those claims, especially at DOC, preventing chemical and bloodborne pathogen exposure through the use of PPE, preventing avoidable injuries such as slip, trip, and fall hazards, and others. So again, fully supportive of this effort, and we think that this small investment will have wide-ranging impact on our workers' comp cost lines. I'm happy to ask Bob Jadida or Dave Ward from our workers' compensation team provide additional clarification as well with any questions on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Again, Robert Jadida. DAS HR Administrator for Workers' Comp and the Master Insurance Program. Yes, we're supporting DOC with this position. If we simply reduce a couple slip, trips, and falls, and last year we had 120, slip, trips, or falls. Saving one orthopedic surgery can be roughly $50,000 to $100,000 just in savings. We're partnering with DOC with some of the functions, tasks that will be associated with the position. This will be more of a field position, outreach to the correctional facilities, meeting with leadership as well as collective bargaining units, so that they understand what the purpose, intent, and scope of the position is.
Any
Okay,
questions on that position?
Any questions?
Sorry.
Any questions from the committee members? Okay.
Great. And then the next question was similar in nature relative to workers' compensation. This was from Senator Austin as well, looking for additional information around the centralized processing of workers' comp claims. So we just want to reinforce that the centralized processing of those claims has resulted in the elimination of over 50,000 paper files. Consistent processing by the centralized team also standardizes all of those processes and ensures that we're following all of the rules and procedures consistently across the executive branch. And that we, through our workers' compensation team at DIS, are supporting our agencies through the expertise that they bring. And again, I think through the safety officer, again, that's one area where we can, again, look at reducing claims and supporting our agency leadership and ensuring the safety of our employees as well. We do think that the centralized workers' compensation model has been successful in that regard and certainly in others. But happy to take, again, any other questions on our workers' compensation claims model and how that's moving forward.
Do you have any questions from the committee? I don't have any questions. You can. Okay. All right, Commissioner.
All right. So the next question was from Representative Harrison around the inventory of state buildings. So we have provided a link to the OPM publication that they manage. Basically, OPM really provides the statewide inventory of all state properties across the executive branch. So it's a voluminous report. DIS basically oversees about 10% of state property. We're happy to provide more information, and again, certainly with Deputy Commissioner Darren Hobbs, Doug Moore as well, we can provide additional information about specific properties that DIS oversees and manages, whether it's through ownership or through lease. But we are working on that building consolidation for 450 Columbus Boulevard. The focus of that particular property is specific to that building, while we're also looking at 55 Farmington for a possible restack of furniture based on our employee counts and obviously best utilization of that building as well moving forward. So happy to take any questions on our building properties that we manage, and can certainly work with OPM on any follow-ups that you may have. I know you're meeting with them as well, I believe, after us.
Representative Jarrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question. Do you manage the properties for DMV?
Doug, would you like to proceed on that?
I'm sure. Representative, did you say DOT?
No, DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles.
They manage their own facilities.
Okay, because I had a question related to that. So I will ask them in another subcommittee. Thank you.
Representative, if I could, I do want to acknowledge there have been reports in the newspapers, and I think we've been pretty transparent, certainly in working with DMV as well. We are looking at the future of the Wethersfield headquarters when it comes to DMV, the future of that property. So that is part of what we're considering with the 450 consolidation around options for the DMV team to move into Hartford on the administrative side of their house. The branch would itself would be, I think, continue to be located in the Wethersfield, Rocky Hill area. And that's something that DAS and OPM and the DMV team are working closely to ensure that the branch and the administrative staff are housed appropriately in the right locations and with the right space in mind moving forward.
Thank you. You actually anticipated what my question was going to be.
Oh.
So you're talking about moving administration to 450 and then create maybe perhaps getting smaller quarters within the Rocky Hill, Wethersfield area?
Yes, possibly. And so that's part of what that 450 consolidation of Columbus Boulevard is, to see not only about DMV, but what other space opportunities do we have for other agencies. We are not 100% sure that we do have the space, but that's what the study will allow us to determine based on telework, based on other factors around the workforce. We want to make sure that we're maximizing our full space here at 450. And then knowing that the property in Wethersfield at DMV needs significant work. It's an aging building from an infrastructure standpoint. And we're also looking at options for our fleet facility in Wethersfield that also is experiencing significant issues with its facility as well. So we're looking at that entire property holistically in terms of the future and how we can look at those agencies through a consolidation lens, but certainly appropriately in the sense of the mission and where those operations need to be located.
Thank you for that. And I mean, the buildings are quite old and everything. Is this would come under DAS after if they did vacate, is that correct?
Doug, do you want to take that on in terms of how that would work in terms of the remediation?
Well, I would say that if the building was vacated by DMV, OPM would need to make a decision on assigning responsibility. I'll make an assumption that it would be DAS, that we would take care and custody of that property since it's really in the Hartford region and we have resources to manage that property. And then we would have to determine long-term what to do with that property. If it needs remediation before, if it were, for instance, to be demolished, then that would be a task that we would have to take on.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much. Looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that in the future. I do think that Wethersfield facility may be pretty inefficient energy-wise, and I think that might be a big improvement to be able to move, consolidate some of the employees into Hartford. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Representative. Commissioner, do you have, or does your department have a more of a trying to think of a plan or a time frame when you look at all of the buildings all over the state in terms of efficiency and whether these buildings should be commissioned? Is there like a time frame, like every 5 years or
Yeah, so we are constantly at DAS evaluating our properties, whether we own them, manage them. We're engaged in leases, constantly looking at how we get the best value out of those properties. What are the best options moving forward for owning properties, renovating. And so I'm really grateful to Darren, Doug, Shane Mallory, who I don't believe is on, who handles our leasing team needs, David Barkin as well, who's also involved. So that is part of the routine nature of what this team does. And then OPM is charged with looking at the entire state portfolio of properties, because we have agencies like DOT, DDS, DEMIS, and others that own their own facilities and properties. So they are really the agency that oversees the entire state property portfolio. And we're always looking at opportunities where we can surplus property for other purposes, whether it may be housing, solar fields, other uses, and where it makes sense to surplus properties, particularly if they're not cost effective or efficient for state purposes. But I would largely defer to OPM on that broader plan and how they operate that.
Now, are these assessments done in-house, or do they actually contract outside firms to come in and assess the properties?
Certainly. Darren, would you like to take that question on? And Darren Hobbs is Deputy Commissioner of our Real Estate and Facilities Division. Darren?
Thank you, Commissioner. Representative, would you mind repeating the question, please?
The question was, do you actually do these assessments in-house, or do you contract outside organizations to come in and help you to assess whether these properties are energy efficient, or if they need to be decommissioned, or how do you evaluate them?
I will turn to Doug in a second just to fill in some of the detail here as how we do it for our own managed properties. But we do have on-call consultants that we can turn to for specific tasks like energy assessments. The day-to-day routine things Doug's team manages with some dependence on contractors and consultants. But overall, when we need to do a larger study, we would enlist the help of outside consultants with specific expertise in those.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Answer.
Just a little follow-up, at least with the DAS facilities, which we manage, we have a technical services unit within facilities, and they work with our operations team to do evaluations of our buildings. We like to do a 5-year forecast of capital planning or capital needs. And then that we also fine-tune that document, because we have to present a 1-year capital need document to our sister division within DAS, which is construction services. So the larger projects, anything over $1 million threshold, has to go to our sister division within DAS, just like many of the other facility-oriented agencies. And when you're making more detailed decisions, that's when we would turn to these on-call lists to hire consultants to help us to go into deeper dive into what we should or should not be doing with these buildings in question.
Thank you for that added information. Any questions from my committee members? Okay, Commissioner.
Representative, I think that completes the questions from the Appropriations Committee after the larger meeting. Happy to take any other questions from you or from our other members of the General Assembly.
I don't have any questions. I didn't know if there were any questions from my committee members, some of the things that we didn't cover. No questions? Okay. All right. Well, Commissioner, thank you for coming out, and your team. I appreciate all the input that you've given us. You have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, you as well. Look forward to working with you all through the next few months and weeks ahead. Have a great day.
Okay. Susan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that anything else on the agenda for today?
No, you have completed business, sir.
All right. Our next meeting would be
Your decision-making meeting, but we're on YouTube Live, sir, so I'm not going to announce that.
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.